So you're thinking about selling a home in California in 2025, and you know that the DOJ had California pull their forms, and in part, at least according to Google, and I think they're right because I made a video about this before this even came out, the DOJ suggested rules should prohibit sellers from offering compensation to buyer's agents. Now, the lawyer in me would say, no, it is, and I am an attorney and a broker. The lawyer in me says, no, it's more complex, it's more nuanced than that. The point is that we need to make sure there's no steering, there's no anti-competitive behavior, and we need to make sure that buyers are informed. And then, if a buyer wants to request buyer agent compensation, a seller is willing to do it, I don't think the DOJ even had a right to stop that. But they can certainly stop the way realtors were doing it, and they can certainly hate and probably think it's illegal the way the National Association of Realtors has set the tone that MLSs and local areas are going to require buyer agents to sign agreements with buyers where they preset the price the agent's going to be paid ahead of time. This to me is mind-boggling. It's legal, in fact, California's done it, to require a buyer and a buyer's agent have a signed agreement. But I think it's questionable, it's probably illegal to force a buyer agent to tell the buyer, I'm going to get paid $20,000 or 2% or whatever it's going to be, no matter what happens, regardless of what the seller's offering. Because what has led to is institutionalized steering, which is unethical and perhaps criminal, and perhaps it's even a whole RICO institutionalized criminal enterprise now, because by forcing compensation to be made before a buyer even sees the home, what's happening is the realtors are telling the buyers, hey, if the seller is not willing to pay my $20,000 fee or whatever my fee is, do you want me to show the home? Because if I do show it and you like it and you want to buy it, you're going to have to pay me my full amount of money or make up the shortfall out of your own pocket. And sellers are going to say no 99% of the time. So the agent says, well, okay, then we're not going to see those homes, but that's okay. We'll find a great home for you. There's plenty of homes to look, and we'll keep our eye out for good ones. So they're now steering. It's institutionalized. This process is absolutely mandating a very high percentage of steering. Might not happen in every case. There may be a few buyers who say, yeah, I will give you $20,000 if you find me a home. But that's super rare. So they're cementing in the steering, which, if that's not a RICO violation, I don't know. I mean, I can argue. If that couldn't be a potential RICO violation, how's that? I don't know what would be. If it's unethical and it's criminal to steer, if they can establish that it's criminal, then this whole process between the agents, the National Association of Realtors, and the MLS, that's like a criminal enterprise. So that's why you don't want to be, as a seller, you don't want to be involved in it. The first thing you could say to your realtor is that I am not willing to sell my home to a buyer's agent who's a member of that trade organization. I love to pay buyer's agents, but they can't be members of NAR. I don't think many sellers are going to do that. So now, in absent of that, the sellers need to protect themselves. Realtors don't have these forms. Their card took them away. Realtors cannot explain this to sellers. As a realtor, I'm a broker. I certainly think you need to, if you don't have your sellers understand this, what's in this form, I hesitate to think of what's going to happen as more lawyers look into this process. Without these forms, every single transaction is going to be questioned and questionable. Like I would think that it will be a field day for sellers and buyers. Sellers will just go see a lawyer, and the lawyer's going to say, we want that listing fee back because you didn't explain this to us, because you put my seller at risk for these things that the DOJ has said. They don't even think that sellers should be offering compensation to buyer's agents because you didn't protect my seller. You didn't understand what you were doing. You didn't explain these risks to my seller. We want that feedback. So sellers, you should be protected with forms like these. Listing agents, I think I'll discuss this as much as you want, but I'm offering this form free. And the whole process, in a one-to-many situation, super negligible. Now, the first thing is, the seller needs to understand that perceptions of steering or conflict of interest by buyer's agents. So if you're agreeing to compensate a buyer agent, it may entail the following risks: perceptions of steering or conflicts of interest to buyer's agents, questions about fiduciary duties owed by buyer's agents to their clients, and potential legal actions from buyers or other parties. Other parties would be lawyers. So, or, DOJ or other authorities. Like, all the offering buyer agent compensation is fraught with concerns. The seller, here's what this is going to protect the listing seller. This is protecting listing agents because I want them to adopt these forms. The seller acknowledges that real estate agents are not licensed to provide legal or financial advice, including advice regarding the risks or benefits of compensating buyer's agents. Your agent's just not licensed to do it. The seller may visit Certified Seller Advocate to learn more about mitigating or eliminating these risks, or watching this video is the beginning, and this will be there, and you may consult independent legal counsel. The seller acknowledges that this agreement is separate from the purchase contract and serves to document the seller's instructions regarding buyer agent compensation. So the first scenario, I guess I need one more box there. I'm not going to do it right now. No buyer agent compensation offered for now. So as long as this is the only box checked, no buyer agent will be considered. No buyer agent compensation will be considered. This is the safest. And in certain markets, with certain homes, if you price your home well, you may get multiple offers anyway, because these homes, that's the good thing, is that your home can still be listed on the MLS, and now no one knows whether you're offering compensation. So plenty of people will still be calling your listing agent in demand situations. Plenty of buyer's agents will be calling up, and those buyers might not want to work with a buyer agent if they have to pay them, but they might still then contact your listing agent. So you could sell your home without offering any compensation ever. However, I believe that in certain circumstances, buyer agent compensation is extremely useful. In slow markets, I counsel clients to offer an extra percent, and I would go to a caravan meeting and say, if we get an offer in the next 30 days and then it closes, we'll pay you an extra 0.5% or 1%. Or sometimes I took my own money on my listing side and offered that 0.5% because I wanted showings. I wanted people to see the properties on certain houses, especially if they were priced well, or they looked great and were overpriced. I wanted people to see it because there are buyers that are not that price sensitive. And if we let their agents know about it and they see it's a great home, they certainly won't be embarrassed to show it to their clients. And that worked. Unquestionably, we had circumstances where other agents couldn't sell homes that were overimproved. We offered the extra percent and we sold them within weeks. And we know the buyers still had buyer agent. We saw them, and we saw strong agents explaining why it was still a well-priced property, even though, because everything was upgraded, even though it might not have comped, even though sometimes the buyers had to pay a little extra because they didn't even get all the money that were being lent on it. I also know I sold my own home in the bottom of the short sale market, one of two in a whole area in Florida, by offering that extra percent, and the buyer's agent gave that percent to his buyer. So it works in some circumstances. So here are the three scenarios that could be considered. One, your listing agent or their AI. I think it's really important to have an AI answering the phone calls on these and getting the information, documenting who they're explaining this to. But they're going to say, yeah, we are considering, the seller will consider offering buyer agent compensation. You see how I just made that mistake? This is why you want the AI. The AI needs to say the seller. The seller is contemplating, or would it be amenable to negotiating buyer agent compensation? Please make your requests with written offers for the property. Third scenario, you could tell, the seller could be telling the listing agent that we want you to respond affirmatively, that we are offering $20,000 or $30,000. I highly suggest you don't offer it as a percent. You offer it as, you figure out what 2% would be on the million or 2 million, whatever you might be paying, and then make it a flat fee. So you'd say, well, the seller's offering $30,000, $20,000 compensation to buyer's agents upon a successful close. Now, I also highly suggest that you leave money for an attorney to advise the buyers about how compensation works and advise the buyers about all these risks of steering and other things. Now, there's an alternative that I think I just decided on today, that if you don't want to offer the 1,000, you could have them go to, what did I decide it was? My website. I think it's certified. I don't even know what it is. I should have remembered. I'll put it on the website. Instead of 1,000, you could have them go to a website that I'm creating. I'll get other lawyers involved with it, but we'll do it for a lot less, and there won't be a question. We're not going to need to get paid ahead of time. This is really the sticking point. How, if they're not going to close, if something falls through, are they still going to owe the buyer attorney a fee of $300, $500, or $1,000? So the issue is buyers are going to need to find attorneys who are willing to do it at closing, and if it doesn't close, they'll not get charged the fee. So I'm setting up a situation where it'd be less than $1,000 and it'll be only payable at closing. So in short, to protect yourself, with follow the process that a certified seller advocate will know, and take $1,000 off or $500 off that fee, and say, yes, we will pay buyer agent compensation of this much, but we have to have an attorney paid on the HUD. Now, this is the part realtors are not going to understand, and that's why I've created training that will also go with this form, where I've already documented. I've got all the handouts. I've got a video of the National Association of Lawyers saying that buyer agent compensation can still be broadcast. It just can't be done on the MLS. 99% of your agents don't understand it, can't bring it up, can't talk to you about it. A certified seller advocate can, because they're going to follow a proper process. But I'm thinking that the moment that you're saying, yes, I'm open to compensation, request for compensation, then you might as well do what used to create multiple offers and start broadcasting it. Send out the flyers in the emails. Go to the broker caravans and say we're offering $2.5, well, $20 or $25 or $30,000, whatever it is, upon a successful close. Put a sign rider out in front of your home if there's a sign in front of your home. Put it on open house websites. Market it on social media, including a fee for buyer's agents. Now, the great thing is, if you follow our process, it might not even cost you any more money, because you're going to take in offers over a period of a week. And if you have multiple offers, you'll be able to rank them. And maybe you'll see that the people with the buyer's agent's requests are also still paying you a higher net because they're offering more. I mean, you'll be able to rank them. If someone without a buyer, someone who's not asking for buyer agent fees, offers $1 million, someone with is offering $1,050,000, well, it might turn out to be a higher net for you if you like the rest of the offer. Or vice versa. You might say, I'm going to go with the one that doesn't request a fee. But the DOJ likes transparency, having a system where you take in offers for a few days and consider them, and then let them compete against each other, like the low one. Say, you take the strongest, say your strongest offer, we're not going to make you compete, we're going to give you a right of first refusal, and then you let the others, you go to the bottom one and say, right now, you'd have to beat here, are you interested? They can drop away, or they can offer more, compete against each other. They'll know it's serious because you're willing to let them go if they don't, and it can result in a much higher selling price for you. And in the end, your strong offer that you didn't chase away, because some people might say, oh, I don't want to be involved in that process, that you didn't chase away, you can still decide. You can still, if you love their offer and everything, you can say, yeah, I still think you're the strongest and the best, I'll go with you. Or you could say, do you want to beat one of these others? If you really trust that offer, it's a strong offer, you think they're really motivated, you could go with that one too. Or give them the right of first refusal. Well, if you told them that, you should do that. Now, so you broadcast it and try to create a multiple offer scenario. So to me, it's almost binary. It's like no buyer agent compensation, or if you're agreeing to it, have these forms signed, have the buyer form signed, and offer compensation, and try to create as much interest in people seeing your home and making offers as possible. So now, I'm also saying the seller's going to authorize, like part of this process, as I said, would be buyer agent education. So I've created 3 forms because I'm concerned if a judge threw out one form, I don't want him to throw out everything. And so I want three to be standing. So we've got a waiver of rights to participate in a class action suit, a waiver to file a lawsuit against the seller regarding buyer agent compensation, and then this is really the main one that I think most people, these are two I've thought about. This is the obvious one. A request form from the buyer to seller to compensate the buyer's agent. And I'd like it to, I have certain language in there, and I want some handwritten things in there from the buyer so that it shows they're really aware. It's not just initials. They're going to handwrite in things. So it shows they're really aware that they can seek a price reduction rather than having their buyer's agent paid. That you're doing this as an accommodation to them. They can still get that price reduction if they don't if they won't have a buyer's agent. So it's really their choice. That's how I'm trying to make it. Is it a perfect scenario? I'm not saying it's 100% protecting you, but I think it's pretty darn good. Now, especially, this to me is the whole kicker. This either $1,000 on a HUD for the buyer's agent, and with those forms, have them making sure that the agents review those forms with them, or I don't know how good the buyer's agent is. I know that here it is, certifiedhomebuyer.com. I'm going to have a process there that will explain what the sellers are doing, and these are the forms, and that their buyers need to be educated. If they're willing to follow our process, this is how it's going to go. Now, I see an internal slight conflict for me. Like, I'm hoping I can get other attorneys involved in that. But this will be an alternative option because, at least with this option, the buyers will not have to pay anyone up front. It will be that $1,000 or $500 you would put on the HUD would just be available at closing to lawyers working with certifiedhomebuyer.com. Now, disclosures and understanding, we've kind of got some predetermined, they didn't like, I guess Google Docs doesn't like that. So anyway, I've never loved boilerplate, so this was not my strongest effort. I would imagine some agents are going to say they want more boilerplate in there, and I'll be happy to put it in there. Here's the signature boxes. I guess people will be wanting to make it prettier, so I'll ask them if they want to make it prettier, and we'll share those. And then this is here for now. I might have another way to control this. And I think it's going to be that all the sellers have to come to my website and download these forms. Like, I prefer for the listing agents, you're going to have these forms, and you can do with them what you'd like and change them and alter them and take this away. But my point is, I think you're going to want to have your seller go to Certified Seller Advocate, watch this video or shorter one, and come back to you with this form. So anyway, that is the training. It was in depth. I understand. But the good news is you're now trained and you can download this form. And I'll send it to you free. Now, when you do that, there's going to be a community for agents. There'll be a community, and there'll be the documentation and a little bit more training on, like, my two-step listing process and two-step selling process, which I think you'd want to follow. I think it's important, and I think you'd want to follow it. There's no real downside to it other than not discussing this levels of compensation with the seller ahead of time. I think that's very important to avoid price fixing and some of the unethical behaviors. Like, if you haven't discussed the buyer agent level of buyer agent compensation ahead of time, if it really starts off at zero, like, I think a lot of the problems go away with respect to the class action lawyers and the anti-competitive pricing, because you're taking a listing without negotiating or even discussing the levels of compensation for buyer's agents. So I would follow that two-step listing process. If your seller wants to sell really fast, maybe they're open to an investor buying it immediately, or if not, they should be able to wait till you get it listed to then come back, sign this form, and advise you what they want to do with buyer agent compensation. And that's why you probably want them to go talk to me, watch more of the videos in my course. You can even specify the ones. I'll make that available where we talk about buyer agent compensation and selling fast and what they want to do. So when you click through, you'll get the community. The form will be sent to you, and there'll be more training, and then an offer. Like, why is it getting Clients Pro? Because that's our software. We've got an AI. I've been prompting the AI, been working on the training, so it will handle your calls. It already handles calls amazingly. You won't believe it if you haven't seen the videos. And now I'm putting in, because I just this week, one of the things was bugging me is that the conversational AI wasn't able to trigger workflows. So if someone wanted let's say you were marketing a seller's guide, even on buyer agent compensation, or this very form, like I'll create a form that you can use to separate yourself out from other realtors. We're going to have that training in there, and we'll talk about how, like, it's not as complicated as it used to be. You just have the AI talking or responding to text, and then it can trigger the workflow and get their information, schedule an appointment, send them the seller guide. I mean, it's awesome. So we're going to do a little bit of training on that, and how, like, some people are going to want the buyer agent compensation forms, and we'll talk about that in the training, like the forms, how you get the forms for the buyer's agents. Well, as of now, I'll talk about it on the next page, because if I change the way it's being done, I don't want to have to take this video down every time. So thank you for listening. I'm sorry it took that long, but I don't know, it's important. Talk to you later. Once again, John McConnin, gettingclientspro.com is my software. You can get the form at forum.gettingclientspro.com. And if you're seeing this on YouTube, this will, for now, be the training that you see when you go to this page.